All right, well, welcome everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our very first parent night for the Montgomery Virtual Academy. I am so pleased to be here with you, and we have a wonderful evening of information prepared for you. I know that we have many questions, and you have been very patient as our community, and we are really excited to be starting this wonderful adventure of a year with you together. Joining me this evening is Mr. Steve Orders, and he's going to be helping us with the slides this evening. And so if you would take us to the next slide, Mr. Orders.
Absolutely.
All right, so we are going to start with some introductions. Next slide, please. So I'd like to formally introduce myself. My name is Cassandra Heifetz, and I am the proud Dean of the Montgomery Virtual K-6 Academy. A little bit about myself. Most recently, I was the very proud principal of Glen Haven Elementary School in Silver Spring, part of Montgomery County Public Schools. I've been a Montgomery County Public Schools employee for 23 years, and I have been an elementary classroom teacher, a middle school classroom teacher. I was a media specialist, an assistant principal, and then most recently a principal. And I'm really excited and proud to be leading what we call the lower school in the Montgomery Virtual Academy.
And good evening. My name is Steve Orders, and I am coming most recently from the amazing Roberto Clemente Middle School. Had a lot of great times there and learned a lot from the teams there. I've also worked at Wood Middle School, where I began my journey back in 2000. Went to Wooten High School from there, then to Central Office to work on some curriculum and assessment. Went to Clarksburg High School for a time, worked at Watkins Mill High School with some amazing people. And I'm super excited, as Ms. Heifetz just said, to be leading the charge with a brand new initiative that a lot of hardworking and brilliant folks are helping us to get off the ground. And we're excited to be here to answer some questions we know you have. So as she said before, thank you so much for your patience and thanks for joining us.
A little bit about how we're organized. So we are the Montgomery Virtual Academy, but we are divided into two academies. We have what we're calling the lower school, which is the K-6 Academy. And then we have the upper school, which Mr. Orders is leading.
And that's within grades 7 to 12.
Sorry about that. We are actually part of the Department of Technology, Integration and Innovation, housed within the Office of Strategic Initiatives in Montgomery County Public Schools. This is a really important point, which really emphasizes how, in addition to providing outstanding learning, we're also really focused on how we innovate and utilize technology to provide a high quality education to all of our students.
We both are excited to have left very wonderful, amazing communities to begin something very new. And so we just wanted to start things off by saying how excited we are to see this opportunity to continue to innovate and to forge new ground and to make this this foray into online education something that we can all really get behind. A few words
I'd like to just, sorry. So I'd just like to introduce the team. Each of the academies has a team of amazing professionals who are working together and collaborating to lead. On the lower school side, supporting the academy, we have Jackie DeLucia. She is the supervisor in the academy. Then we have Marjorie Cohen and Kimberly Hayden, who serve as the coordinators on the lower school academy.
And in the upper school, we have the amazing Dacia Robertson, who is our supervisor up there upper school. And we also have Nicole Reeves and Carrie Vieira, who are our coordinators. It's a great team. We're excited to get started.
So just to draw everyone's attention to how our webinar works this evening, we are taking your questions using the Q&A, which you will see at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom. We do invite you to add your questions to the Q&A. Hopefully, through the course of the evening, we'll be answering many of those questions, but we know there are many. We have a team behind the scenes off camera with us this evening, and they are going to be helping us address some of the questions that come up. Any questions that we're not able to address this evening, we do promise to be following up. This will be recorded and posted, as well as a copy of the Q&A from this evening. So folks will be able to go back and take a look at the information that is shared, as well as answers to other questions that we might not have been able to get to this evening.
And in organizing this effort, we did have some questions that we've already gotten, and they may echo some of the questions you have. So we want to go over a few of those with you first, and share with you that we have currently, as far as the program size and scope of the program, we are excited to be a very large program. We have approximately 2,500 students who have submitted applications so far. So that's quite a large body of students. And our elementary school program has an average of 7 to 8 teachers at each grade level. And our middle and high school programs in the upper school have 4 to 6 teachers in most subject areas as well. Some specialized courses and programs, such as international or IB programs, magnet programs, courses like horticulture or other specialized programs, may not be offered in the virtual academy based on student requests and needs. And before I move into enrollment, I just wanted to add that the class sizes of our classes here at the Virtual Academy will mirror and be very similar to the class sizes you would find in a regular brick and mortar school.
So we imagine that there are a lot of questions about the application process and the enrollment process. So I'm going to try to address some of those right now. We did have the application window open until July 2nd. And all of those applications have been reviewed and are being reviewed individually. So with the number that you heard Mr. Orders talk about, that does take a little bit of time. The first round of acceptances were actually sent out by email in mid-July. Those families who received that would have received it in their email, the email that they would have registered with, and that would have indicated their acceptance to the Academy. Applications do continue to be reviewed, and acceptances are being sent out in weekly batches. So we recognize that there are some families who have not yet received word of their status in the Academy. And we do apologize, and we are so appreciative of everyone's patience as we work through this so that we can get out the best information to each family. If a child has an IEP or a 504 plan, there is an additional review process involved. And that does take an extra team of MCPS staff who are taking a very close look at those and determining how we might be able to provide those services in the Virtual Academy. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that this evening. If a family has not yet received their notification about your child's status, we promise that it is still in process, and you can expect to be contacted after a thorough review of the application and any supporting documentation. I will add that perhaps you were contacted earlier this month or last month, and somebody might have asked for some documentation. If you had that, we do ask that you submit that to the email Dropbox so that can be added to your child's application so the application can be reviewed in full. Next slide.
And a big part of the process of reviewing each application, because each application gets its own very thorough view, is that we have students who have IEPs or 504s. And so we're looking at those services that are being provided, and we're making sure that we can provide the services that are most applicable to our students' needs. So students with IEPs will have a meeting and have an amendment conversation. That's for if there are smaller amounts of service hours or needs. And then if there are more significant services, there will be a full IEP meeting to look at all of the needs and see what can be met and what can be matched up. And until these scheduled meetings occur, which will be next week, the parent will have those meetings and they'll accept the changes to the IEP, and then the student's enrollment in the academy will be finalized. And until that time, the application is not finalized until we have that conversation about what amendments need to be made.
So that brings us to a little bit of a process that we want to talk about this evening. This is some new information for families about finalizing enrollment. So I think the first thing to understand is a little bit about the sequence of steps. The first step is that a family submitted an application, and then that application was reviewed or is in the process of being reviewed. And from there, a decision gets communicated to the family, which basically might say, your child has been accepted into the virtual academy. That does not mean that the child is automatically coming to the academy. We recognize that parents might have been waiting for information that we're sharing tonight or have other questions that they need answers to before they fully commit to sending their child to the virtual academy. And so what we have as the next step in the process is that families are invited to complete the virtual academy response form to indicate whether or not you are accepting your enrollment into the academy, or if perhaps you are selecting to withdraw your application for your child. You might also be indicating that at this time, you're not really sure that you have enough information to make a decision, or you haven't yet received notice of your child's acceptance, and therefore you're not able to respond. We have here 2 ways that you'll be able to access that. If you have a phone that can scan a QR code, we do invite you to use your phone and you can bring that up. There is also a bit.ly link here at the bottom of the screen. It's bit.ly at MVA reply. And we'll be providing this link in a number of different ways as well as through email. It's now being shared out for those who would want to access that at this time. Although there's no rush, you have a little bit of time to do that. And so in that response form, there are a number of questions that we are asking families to complete. First, of course, identifying your child's information, such as the name, the grade, and the ID number, communicating the intention of whether or not you are confirming acceptance to the academy, or perhaps choosing to withdraw or wait for more information. And we're also looking for information about whether or not your child might be participating in extracurricular activities with the homeschool, whether or not they still need an MCPS Chromebook, and whether there are special scheduling considerations. It is a Google form, and so you can have it translated to the language of choice when you open that, and we do invite you to submit that beginning this evening. If you have more than one child that you have applied to participate in the virtual academy, we do need for you to complete a separate form for each child. There will be a way to submit a new response at the bottom of the form after you submit. Next slide.
So it's important now that we've talked about some of the nuts and bolts of how to get things started and how to make sure that you're enrolled and accepted and questions you might have. It's important to talk about what the Academy is. And it's just as important to talk about some of the things that the Academy is not. And one of the things we want to make very clear is that we are moving out of what we have thought of as a period of the pandemic. Hopefully things are continuing to get better and we will continue to move out of the dark period we've all experienced together. And we've learned a lot about education. We've learned a lot about pedagogy and students and motivation and a lot of other amazing things, including technology and what's available. And we're going to take those things and we're going to leverage them as we move forward. But it's important to note that this is in many ways different from what we have thought of as online learning, remote learning during the pandemic. So we want to go over a few of those important differences.
So I think one of the first things to acknowledge is that Montgomery County is a very large school system, and no 2 schools did things probably quite exactly the same. We really want to point out things that are going to be consistent within the Montgomery Virtual Academy and may or may not have been different from what your child experienced at the school that they attended last year. The first point we'd like to make is that this is a full day model of instruction. It will meet 5 days per week, And the main method of learning is what's considered synchronous instruction. That means there is a teacher leading that instruction, live instruction, and the students and the teacher are interacting with one another during the time set aside for that class or class period. We also want to point out that it is a full year commitment that families are making to the virtual academy. While we do acknowledge that family circumstances might change, we really do want to create a sense of consistency for the students. And so we are asking that if families are communicating that they are enrolling their child, that they make that full year commitment. There will be opportunities, though, at marking period or semester transitions to consider that transfer. These would be natural breaking points potentially that will minimize the disruption to the student's academic program. Another important feature of the Virtual Academy program is that we want to ensure and will ensure that students are meeting graduation requirements. They receive the core courses that meet those MSD expectations and requirements. And so we are providing a comprehensive program in that way around those core courses. Unfortunately, though, there are some specialized programs we're not able to offer at this time. As you heard earlier, the International Baccalaureate program is one example of a specialized program that we cannot offer. We're also not offering those specialized CTE programs. Those are still happening at other schools and in other ways.
And we're excited to partner with schools and programs to try to make sure that we get the best fit for all of our students, even though we can't offer everything online. As we mentioned just a few minutes ago, there is this special review for IEP services. And so while we know we can't provide every single thing that we can provide in person while we are virtual, we will review that with you, and we will talk through that with families to make sure that everyone is informed and can make the best decision for their family and their students. It's also important to note that there will be some in-person on-site engagement at times. In the current moment, that might sound a little bit nerve-wracking, but we are looking forward in the future to having opportunities for students to do certain things, such as maybe a science lab that cannot be done at home because of the materials involved. And we're going to partner with our school partners to make sure that we can secure some places for students to come in and to have those in-person experiences. We'll provide much more information about that, so don't worry about that right now, but do be aware that as we look to the future, we are looking to build those opportunities into our programs. Report cards and diplomas and some other records will be taken care of via the homeschool, because your students will be dual enrolled. They'll still be enrolled at the homeschool, even though they're being instructed and managed for the most part by our instructors and our administration, but they're still connected to their home school. And that works in a couple of different ways, which we'll address throughout the evening. But report cards and diplomas, for example, will be still worked on through the homeschool. And I think that MCPS did a really nice job of providing technology throughout the last couple of months and the last year and a half or so. And we will continue to be dedicated to making sure that we get every student and every family the technology that they need. That begins with Chromebooks, but it also goes for other technology as needed. So we will be in touch with you as families and as well with your students to make sure that they're getting exactly what they need and that they are supported technologically as well as pedagogically.
So now we'd like to share some special highlights of the Virtual Academy program. And the first and really most important thing I'd love to talk about are the incredible staff that we have hired to teach the students in our program. We are super excited about the staff that's coming together. First of all, the teachers that your child will have are teachers who excelled in using technology and engaging students in a virtual setting. Our interview and selection process really emphasized how teachers transform their craft into the virtual space to elevate and innovate around teaching and learning. The majority of the staff are actually experienced educators in MCPS. And so along with experience from the past year of teaching online, they also bring years of experience teaching their subject area and their grade levels. And they're going to be able to bring that to the classrooms and the spaces in our virtual academy. We recognize it's important to support our staff. Even though they have some experience in teaching online, we are still doing some things new and in a different way. So our staff will be organized in grade level teams, that's mostly at the elementary level, And at the secondary level, in subject-specific teaching teams. This will help to support planning, alignment and instruction, and also really help with just that relationship building and community building within our academy. We do know there are questions about how big will the classes be and how many students will a teacher have. We are aligning our class sizes to those of in-person instruction. We recognize that it is important that the number of students that a teacher has really does influence the quality of that learning. And so it will be very similar to what you might expect in an in-person classroom. And we're really excited about the staff that we're bringing on board. And so we've taken to saying our staff are virtually the best in MCPS. I think we have a t-shirt that might just come out with that on it.
Can't wait till we have some t-shirts and some logos and all that kind of stuff, all the fun stuff that makes the school really come to life. The curriculum itself, which is of course what the meat of the experience will be for our students, is a variety of learning materials used in specially designed online learning. So we're adapting things that are from the in-person classroom experience and making them available and accessible and engaging for students who are working remotely. I'll let Ms. Heifetz talk a little bit about elementary.
Absolutely. So the elementary curriculum will very much align and match with what's happening in brick and mortar schools. So students for literacy, reading and writing instruction will be using the benchmark ELA curriculum as the basis of the curriculum and materials. Eureka Mathematics will be used as the foundation for the mathematics instruction. And MCPS curriculum will be used for all the other subject areas like science, social studies, and health. I do know there have been questions about accelerated math, and we are intending to offer those elementary accelerated math courses to the students who were recommended for those courses in their home school. And so we will be following the same curriculum and also the same pacing around the curriculum for our elementary students.
All right, and for the upper schools, these names should sound familiar to those who have already been in the middle school level. We have StudySync for our literacy learning, LearnZillion for our mathematics, and again, MCPS curricula for all of these other subjects. And they'll be based again on what students would do in their normal pacing, in their normal in brick and mortar in-person education. And these teachers are well-versed in all of these curricula and how to make them come alive for students. At high school, there is that same blend of MCPS curriculum. There is a platform called Edmentum courseware, which will come through Canvas, through my MCPS classroom. So you don't need to know much about the name Edmentum, but there will be different resources that teachers can use to augment their instruction and to build even different experiences for students than they would have in person. And they'll use other online resources. You've probably heard Padlet and Nearpod and lots of other great apps that our teachers will be using to make sure that students are engaged with each other and with the learning itself. At the bottom of this slide, you do see there is a link for the draft of our secondary course catalog. That is still somewhat in process. We are very, very close to having it totally finalized, but there are still some courses that we're analyzing course requests from students for and making sure that we have the proper amount of staffing and sections and all of the stuff that goes into building a master schedule. It's a fascinating puzzle and we are having a lot of fun working on it, but we have a draft that we think is ready to share so you can see sort of where things are at the moment. The caveat I add to that is that it is still a draft and we still will have some minor changes to it based on availability of courses. So you can take a look at it. And I know you can't click on our screen right now. So I'll take a moment just to remind you, if you came in late especially, that this is being recorded and these resources will be made available to you at the close of this session. So you will be able to take a look at that course catalog very, very soon, and you can see what courses are being offered. And just as importantly, you might see some courses that are not being offered, as we mentioned before. So you can start to plan accordingly and work towards what your schedule should look like for your children.
Before we leave this slide, actually, if you don't mind going back, I just want to point out one thing about the curriculum.
Absolutely.
So at the elementary level, we recognize that there are some specialized programs around the county in elementary schools. Specialized programs exist at all levels. One kind of specialized program are immersion programs. And we do want to point out that the virtual academy will not have an immersion program as part of the program. If your child has been attending an immersion program, they would not be experiencing that immersion program in the virtual academy. So I did just want to bring that up. That would be also the same for a center type program as well. So we are using MCPS curriculum, but as we said earlier, there are some specialized programs that the virtual academy will not be able to provide.
Very good. I'm on the wrong screen.
All right, and so just to highlight a few other features of the virtual academy, in addition to focusing on teaching and learning through the core content, we want to point out that we will also have a number of supports available for students. So we will have school counselors, and so school counseling services will be available through the virtual academy. Special education services will also be available dependent upon those IEP amendments and so on that were talked about earlier. ESOL instruction will be provided to those students who receive ESOL services and additional academic supports that students might need. Those might be informal supports such as check-ins with teachers, student support time built into the schedule, and we'll be looking at schedules shortly, or it might be some more formal academic supports in the form of planned intervention times that students might need in order to be successful academically.
Thank you. We talked about technology a bit before. I just want to make the point again here that Chromebooks will be issued by MCPS for all students. So part of that form that you're going to fill out with your acceptance or response, I should say, is whether you have or need a Chromebook, and we'll make sure that you get what you need. And information about distribution for those materials will be shared very soon. We will be using Zoom for most classroom experiences. There's also the interface My MCPS Classroom, which you no doubt are familiar with. It's also referred to as Canvas by our employees because that's what it looks like on our side. And then the Google applications on a daily basis, such as Sheets and Docs and Slides and all of those things, and many, many more. There are additional technology applications that teachers are exploring to use with students and to make sure that their subject-specific instructional needs are met and that students can engage fully with each other again and with the material itself. It's also worth pointing out that even if you have something that's working now and you get it replaced and then it stops working later, another thing I think that the Office of Technology and Innovation has done a great job with is to make sure that when we hit a snag, we are able to address it quickly and get our students and families back up and running. So we will have supports in place for you to let us know if there are things that you need, and we can get you what you need as quickly as possible.
And one feature that we do want to point out that we have really strived to make possible for students would be the ability to participate in extracurricular activities and sports with the homeschool. We recognize that many students have after-school activities that are very important to them, but they are also still choosing to participate in the virtual academy for a variety of reasons. And so the schedules that we designed were designed purposefully to try to create some of that flexibility. If a student does want to participate in the extracurricular activities and sports offered at their homeschool, families would simply need to communicate with the homeschool to register for those activities and sports. We are hoping to explore virtual clubs and activities that we can offer within the virtual academy. That's something we're looking at as we build up and build out across our program in the coming months.
Sorry, having trouble getting this to advance. All right, sorry about that. Little breather for everyone to take a moment. There's a lot of information we're sharing, so thank you for your patience. Schedule design principles. We want to talk a bit about how we came up with our schedule. We'll share the actual schedules in just a moment, but it's really important to look at some of the ways that we came to the place that we have arrived at. And one of the things we really wanted to try to accomplish was to have a common lunch period among all of the school levels. We know that many of our families have children at different levels, and for other reasons, we want to have that lunch period to be consistent across all levels. And it's a difficult puzzle to put together, but we think we've come up with a good solution. So the common lunch period was an important driving principle. We wanted to have some bell times that promote cross-level staffing needs so that we can make sure that if we have folks who are sharing grade levels, perhaps, teaching at multiple grade levels with multiple subjects even, that we can accommodate that. So we worked hard together to make that happen. We really wanted to be flexible to support part-time participation for students, especially at the upper levels who have specific program needs or who might be engaged in other things besides just the classes that we are offering. And we wanted to build in time for student support. One of the most important things I think we all learned from being online this last year was that with being separated and being more online, it comes the need to also have chances to connect and to make real meaningful connections with both staff and other students. So we really want to focus on making sure there's time in each day and each week for that social emotional check-in and that social emotional learning and support. We also need to make sure that there's time for students to transition to in-person after school activities that Ms. Heifetz just talked about. So if students want to participate in a sport or an after school activity and they're comfortable going to their school, we wanted to make sure that our schedule does not preclude them from doing that. So those are some of the major things that we really looked at while we tried to put together a schedule that fits everyone's needs.
So now I'm going to take a few minutes and talk through some details with the lower school schedule, and then we'll take a look at a sample schedule. It's important to recognize that there are 6 grade levels in elementary school, K through 5. And so this schedule applies to K through 5. Even though 6th grade is also part of the lower school, this schedule does not apply to grade 6. So the first thing is, as you heard Mr. Orders speak to, is that we did align a common lunch with the upper school. We felt that was just really important for families and for this experience that might be happening at home. Families can sit together, prepare meals together. For the elementary students, the daily schedule is 9 a.m. to 3:25 p.m., 5 days per week. There is no Wednesday off. Wednesdays are a full day of instruction, just like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And this particular time, 9 a.m. to 3:25, matches many elementary schools across Montgomery County. So it is in alignment with what are called Tier 1 bell times in Montgomery County. A really important part as we designed both the schedule and also the instructional program for the lower school is daily time dedicated to social emotional learning. This will start the day off for students with a morning meeting, time to connect with each other and their teacher, and also have purposeful, dedicated instruction around social emotional learning skills and development. Another key component of the daily schedule is mathematics instruction, and that will range from 70 to 80 minutes daily, depending on the grade level, using the Eureka Math curriculum. Literacy will receive about 100 to 110 minutes daily. And included in that time, there will be whole group reading, small group reading, writing instruction, foundational skills for those foundational reading skills, that phonics instruction that's really important, and phonemic awareness for our youngest learners. And there will also then be daily time dedicated to science, social studies, or health. All 3 of those will not necessarily happen on the same day. That generally does not happen in brick and mortar schools either, but there's time set aside in the schedule for these lessons to be provided in alignment with the MCPS curriculum. We also want to make sure we're providing all of the art, music, and physical education opportunities to our students. And so we call those specials. And so specials will meet weekly. They will have art, music, and PE each week. And we are also going to be embedding some additional time for specials for enrichment and choice, and to create some more opportunities for students to engage in different kinds of activities of interest. There will also be daily time for targeted student supports. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but this is time for the teacher to support students, whether it be individually or in small group instruction to address academic needs. I'm going to take a look now at the schedule for a sample morning. So an example morning might start at 9 o'clock, and from 9 until 9:25, the teacher is welcoming the students are welcoming each other, and the teacher provides a social emotional learning lesson with the class. They will then transition into a math block, for example, and that's where you get that 70 to 80 minutes of mathematics. We recognize breaks are really important. So we wanted to build that into the schedule. And so we see here an example of a 10-minute break between math and the first part of a literacy block. And then we see that lunch and wellness block from 11:35 to 12:35, which you will see as a common time across all of the levels in the virtual academy. This next slide shows what a sample afternoon schedule might look like. So the students have come back from their lunch and wellness block, and now it might be when they have their specials time, followed by a break, and then maybe they'll finish their literacy instruction, have some time for their science, social studies, or health, and then some time for targeted student support and their closing. I really want to point out that this is just an example of what one grade level might look like. All of the grade levels cannot look the same because we cannot have all of the students in the virtual academy having specials at 12:35. So those specials happen all throughout the day on a different rotation. And so if your child is participating in the academy, you will have a schedule that is uniform for the grade level. The grade level will follow the same schedule, and your child's teacher will provide a specific schedule that really outlines all of the specific details. We do really also want to point out that for that elementary school experience, students are not coming and going from the Zoom very often. We know that that can be really challenging for them. And so the idea is that the students are in the Zoom throughout the day, and the transitions are happening within that Zoom period, and that's how they transition from class to class. It will certainly look a little bit different, though, when we take a look at the middle and the upper school.
Thank you. And one thing that will be similar is that emphasis on not having too many transitions, because we know we lose a little bit of time when we move students in and out. So as we looked at the middle school level, let's start there. We explored lots of different options, but liked the most the idea of having longer classes where students and teachers could get into more in-depth instruction, break up the time with some direct instruction, some practice together, some independent practice while the students are still in the room with the teacher and their peers for breakout rooms, et cetera. And so we landed on, for many classes, a 75-minute period. Now, we block this and rotated much like we saw in the most recent online schedules, but we've increased it from 60 to 75 minutes to really emphasize that ability for teachers to get that in-depth instruction and practice for students while they're being supported in the room with their teachers. So this maybe looks a little confusing at first, but the A day right in the middle column there has period 1 as a 75-minute block, and then period 3 as a 40-minute block, but period 3 repeats itself throughout the week. And so you see your period 3 teachers every day of the week, and you have a bit smaller block of instruction, but that continuous meeting and checking in and knowing what's happening in class is something that we think is going to be really exciting. We do have that same lunch wellness time that Ms. Heifetz mentioned a moment ago. And then we have also built into the schedule a 25-minute advisory time, and that can be used in a variety of ways. We'll explore what's best with our counseling department, with our teachers, with our administrative staff, and really find a fit that will help students to stay engaged with each other and make sure that we know that they're doing okay, that they have all needs that they have are being met. Followed by period 6, and then at the end, a student support session, which could be used for smaller group re-instruction, could be used for what we might call office hours, where the students make appointments or are invited to come in and meet with their teachers to get some extra help, and lots of other possibilities. And so again, the A day would rotate to the B day the next day, and then back to the A day. So again, we're not losing instruction or time on those Wednesdays or any day of the week where there's a spot where they're not meeting with their teachers as much. And we would go from, let's say on a Monday, we have A day, on a Tuesday, B day, then Wednesday back to A, Thursday back to B, and then repeating on Friday to the A day. That would bring us to the next week, starting off on a B day as opposed to an A day. So we're very excited about that. And we want to show you also what high school might look like. Very similar structure. And again, we're trying to make sure that there are opportunities for students who might be cross-enrolled, where they might be taking a class that is above their level. And so they're not in their normal, 6th or 7th or 8th grade, cohort, but they're actually taking maybe a high school class or some other opportunity. And so we start our day with period 1 for some students who have a special need in their schedule for a class they can't get any other way, or if they have an internship, lots of other reasons they might want to have that period 1. And for the students who don't have a period 1 class, then they would have a student support session, much like the middle school model, for that first thing in the day. A good chance to get started, get organized for the day, check in with their teacher, and really get a good jump on the day ahead. Then we still have those 75-minute blocks throughout the day, with one more period 4 in the middle that meets every day for that continuous instruction and check-in. Then we have the lunch wellness. And again, we have the advisory later in the day, and we close out with a 75-minute period for period 6 or period 7. So that's a really quick overview of what the high school schedule will look like. And much like the master schedule, we are very, very close to finalizing this, but we are always going back to all of our constituents and our stakeholders to make sure that we're not, disenfranchising anyone who needs a certain setup, and we'll make sure that we can meet everyone's needs. So there may be some minor adjustments to this, but this is the current thinking, and we think it's going to be great for our students and our teachers.
All right. So we want to highlight just a couple of important dates. We know that the beginning of the school year is coming up awfully fast. And so we want to point out that there will be student orientations for students who fully commit to the virtual academy. There will be an upper school orientation on Thursday, August 26th. That will be for grades 7 through 12. On Friday, August 27th will be the student orientation for grades K through 6. The first day for all students, whether you're in person or virtual in Montgomery County, is Monday, August 30th. And so we are very excited for our first day of school at the end of the month. We do not yet have our back to school night dates. Those are still to be determined. But we want to point out that if you are looking at the traditional MCPS school year calendar for the days off, the holidays, the professional days, that's the one that you want to follow. I point that out because we do have a couple of schools in Montgomery County, some elementary schools that are on an innovative school calendar. And so if your child has traditionally attended one of those innovative calendar schools and you do enroll your child in the virtual academy, then you would join in with the traditional calendar with the academy at that time. It's really no different than if you were to relocate and join a new neighborhood and transition. And so anybody looking for, when are those 3-day weekends or when are those holidays happening, the traditional school calendar is the one to follow.
As we begin to close here, we want to acknowledge that there are lots of pieces of information that we are not sharing tonight. There are still many things to be planned, and we know that there is a good balance between sharing information, but not sharing information that's not complete or accurate. And so as we continue to work with the amazing teams that are helping make all of this possible, we know that there are lots of questions. I've seen lots of hand raising in the chat, and people are asking questions, hopefully in the Q&A. And we're obviously focused on delivering the information here, but you'll have more questions and we will have more answers. So a couple of things that we know we need to get more information out to you soon about are information about meals, distribution of materials, as we mentioned before, both technological and also classroom materials, the parent FAQ, which is constantly being updated, help with Synergy and MyMCPS Classroom, because some folks will definitely need a refresher course or maybe even a first tutorial on how to get to some of these materials and these resources. We will have much more information very soon about student schedules, and we'll be sharing those with you so your students are ready for the first day of school on August 30th. And we will, of course, look forward to making some special events, because one thing that Ms. Heifetz and I are very dedicated to is making this a real community. We know that a meeting like this, where you can't really speak to us back and forth, is not ideal, and it doesn't make anyone feel like they have had a chance to have a real face-to-face. It's more like a watching interaction. So we are definitely interested in setting up some things that are both online and perhaps in the future less online, where we can have some events that bring the community together in smaller groups and then as a whole. So we look for more information about all of those things and more coming up very, very soon. And of course, thank you for sharing your questions in the Q&A and through other means as well as you have them, so we can keep you informed.
So there are two important addresses or links that we want to make sure that you have. The first one is the MoCo virtual at mcpsmd.org. That is the email drop box for questions about the Montgomery Virtual Academy. It's also where you would have sent your application form and any supporting documentation. If you have been asked to submit any additional documents, that is where you want to send those to. Additionally, we have the link for the Virtual Academy response form. Mr. Orders, maybe you would just be willing to click on the bit.ly just so people can see what it might look like. That might help them as they plan to do that. I don't know if we can bring that up for folks. It is a Google form, and we are asking that as you complete this form, you are providing information, your email, your child's first and last name, their ID number, and then there's a number of questions to answer. Obviously communicating whether or not you are intending to enroll your child fully in the academy, and then a few other questions there as well. So if you have received your acceptance, again, we invite you to complete that at this time. There will continue to be acceptances sent out electronically. This does take a little bit of time to work through the number of applications, and we truly thank everyone for their patience. We know there's been a lot of questions and some concerns as we've worked through this process, and we have an incredibly dedicated team. As we shared a lot of their names at the beginning of this presentation, they've been hard at work. But we also really want to highlight that there's been a lot of people behind the scenes whose names did not get shared here this evening, who have been working for months to prepare and organize for the launch of the Montgomery Virtual Academy. So to all of those behind the scenes, we just tip our hats, and we are so grateful for all the hard work that paved the way for the teams that are here today.
Yes, and I'll echo that sentiment and just say that we are separate from our in-person colleagues for the moment, but we are still very much a part of the vast network of resources and connections that exist for our students, our staff, and our families. So we are thrilled to welcome so many of you into the Virtual Academy, and we look forward to building those partnerships with our other schools, other buildings, other teams, and other other departments, and making sure that we give our kids the best experience they can possibly have. So thank you again for joining us, everyone. And please ask us your questions in those forums.